Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Liberal Arts Career Lab podcast. Today, I'm honored to have Emma with us. Emma majored in mathematics at Bard, graduated in 2020, and currently works as the program manager and research coordinator at the Center of Economics for Human Development at the University of Chicago. Emma, welcome.
I am from Philadelphia. I graduated from Bard in 2020 and studied math there. After I graduated, I moved to Chicago to work in research and behavioral science at Morningstar, which is a financial services company. And about 6 months ago, I transitioned to the job that I have now at the University of Chicago Center for the Economics of Human Development, where I study the economics of fertility. And I'm also a part-time student in UChicago's MBA program. Program, product, and project management all look very different, like depending on where you work and what kind of stuff you work with. So I'll just leave that as a little disclaimer before I say more about what I do at the University of Chicago. But I am responsible for our ongoing fertility initiative. So the Center for the Economics of Human Development over the summer won a grant to fund some research. My role is to meet the contractual obligations of our funding allotment, which include things like publications, webinars, conferences, across a group of globally distributed researchers who haven't necessarily worked with each other. So when you think about the economics of fertility, you think about like things like having a labor force that supports the young and the old in society. From an economics perspective, you think about like the demographics, right? The demographic shifts and demography. We have a lot of demographers on our team. We have some feminist scholars, some sociologists, some historians, all trying to understand kind of why do people make the decision to have children? And recently understanding this trend that, globally, most developed nations are having a fertility beneath replacement. So, what are the causes of that? What are the consequences of that? My role is to kind of make sure that this research is being well communicated across our group and across kind of the broader interest areas through publication and circulation. So I'm managing this very, very academic research project.
Yeah, so when you came to Bard, if we can move back to that time, what was going through your mind? What were your expectations for education?
I had an idea that I wanted to do something in the math and sciences, but nothing too specific. I only applied to liberal arts schools. I was interested in the small seminar style learning after going to a really big public high school.
Did you have any on-campus jobs when you were at Bard?
So I worked a few different places on campus. I worked a lot for the math department and with the Learning Commons as a tutor. I worked with the Center for Civic Engagement, doing some citizen science work and some other enrichment work with local middle school aged students, doing, math and science experiments for engagement. And then I also held a few work study jobs around campus with the Langan Lit department, picking up some odds and ends around the campus center,
Yeah.
Doing what you got to do. Yeah. I had some great summer internships that Bard supported through my time as a student. One summer, I worked with the CCE, hosting a bunch of students from the Middle East for a State Department initiative. That was great, and I got that opportunity, in like an all call email from the CCE. That was a lot of fun. And then I had an internship at Morningstar, the company that I just mentioned, working for right after I graduated. That was facilitated through the Career Development Office and what was at the time a big recruiting consortium in the fall.
Yeah, well, I want to go back to that point you mentioned about the all-call email from CCE. So I feel like, when students receive such kinds of emails that are sent out to everyone, there's a notion that you may think, oh, it's too competitive because everyone is applying there. So I may not even have a chance. At least I heard such feedback from students. And I'm wondering, what were some thoughts that you had, or maybe some challenges, since it was one of your first experiences with applications? Yeah, when you received that email, what did you think about?
I didn't think, oh, I want to have this kind of job to build my resume or anything. I just wanted something to do for the summer. And so when I saw the opportunity, it was exciting to me because it offered some opportunities for travel, and there were some other attractive features about kind of the nature of the job and the compensation. And I figured I might as well give it a shot. They are super competitive and a lot of people apply, but at the same time, Bard's a small school, and like I offer something unique. So figured I asked to stop by the office to learn more about it, and a couple of people met with me, gave me the rundown, and were super informative and willing to talk about my specific skills and concerns. And that initial sort of conversation kind of organically turned into an interview. And then I emailed the CCE to get some more information about the job. And when I stopped in the office, there were people there ready to kind of consider my concerns and my skills and see how I aligned with the role they were hiring for. And Bard is a small place where you could take advantage of things like that. So that role kind of, I started with a little bit of curiosity, and that became excitement, which became, a great program, and a big part of my professional background.
Did anything change when you had the Morningstar internship?
The Morningstar internship was definitely a different experience. It was my first time really engaging with other peers who weren't in liberal arts school, and my first experience in finance. And I was a little averse to the idea at first. I honestly kind of took the internship so I could tell my economics professors, like, see, I tried finance and now I'm going to pursue a PhD or whatever I thought at the time. But the Morningstar internship offered me a lot of structure in a way that I had never seen at Bard. I had this project that I was expected to do in 8 weeks. I had a team that I was expected to, do another case study with, and the regular check-ins, the office life, the commute. It was a very different experience, like a little insight into growing up and, having a real full-time job. And most of these internships that are for college rising seniors are really like meant to show you what it would be like to work at the company. They build in interviews towards the end of the summer. I was a little nervous. I was maybe even a little pessimistic when I started, but again, sort of organically with curiosity, found myself appreciating parts of it, learning a lot about what I like, the way I work with others, the way I'd like to work. And with a couple other, factors, namely like graduating in 2020 with COVID, like a lot of the people that I ended up starting with after the pandemic had never seen pre-pandemic Morningstar operations, and I got that opportunity with my internships. In retrospect, with what I know now, it was just such a valuable experience for so many reasons. To anyone watching, just go for it.
In our previous conversation, you talked a little bit about being competitive with the kids who are not from liberal arts school. What kind of skills or other parts of your application you put the emphasis on?
At the end of the day, like all in, liberal arts students have a different sort of skill set and application than other students. And I'll speak like with a math, finance, kind of like engineering context, because I think in this space, in this like tech finance space, people really focus on these hard skills and these explicit experience, like I built these models and I've worked with these markets. And that's a little intimidating when I'm saying I have a math degree, and people have an idea of what that might look like, but I know in truth, like I wrote a 60-page paper. And so it was a little bit overwhelming. There is a little bit of kind of imposter syndrome to overcome, but I think that imposter syndrome is really like the root of where this confidence comes from. Like, yes, you are a different type of learner. You are a different type of student and worker. that is a feature of your application. We learn a lot about how to be a student, how to manage time, how to manage priorities, how to understand what resources are available and have those resources be part of, your own personal skill set. And that's something that, like brute technical experience and maybe coding or finance or technical background doesn't necessarily offer. So while everybody makes trade-offs when they make decisions about like what kinds of experience to get and where to go to school, I think Bard students are uniquely able to kind of make it work, right? Like you learn quickly, you get it done. That's something that doesn't replicate well. Like somebody who's really good at data science, is really good at that thing. Somebody who's really good at learning, can become a data scientist. So I think that's really the root of the confidence, is remembering that being qualified for something doesn't mean that you've done it before. It means that you're able to do it. Being confident equally in what you know and what you don't know, and understanding what you need to get there, and being really clear with everybody who you're working with about where you are, what you want to do, and what you're able to do. That inspires confidence in other people, and that builds a reputation of confidence, of reliability, that it's easy to kind of get the ball rolling from there.
You mentioned that, about this idea of knowing what you need to do to get to where you want to go. And I'm wondering, during the time at Bard, how to find the things that you actually like or don't like. Because you mentioned before that it is important to be honest about these things.
Yeah, totally. And that's really hard. And my best advice is to take every experience that you have as a composite of a bunch of different features of work, right? So I like working in a group. I like working from home. Those sort of features, like I like actually digging in with data, and or I like when I have the results from some statistical analysis that I can just kind of work with. Or even if it's bad, you learn that you don't like to do that thing, and then you kind of negate like a whole field of exploration, right? And narrow in on the sorts of things that you do like. So I didn't know what I wanted to study when I got to Bard, so I had a diverse schedule, like a reading class, an art class, a math class, and I just kind of stuck with what I liked and graduated with this math degree. You don't need to say like, I would like to be a program manager and research coordinator when I grow up. You can say, I like working with smart people who have PhDs, and I don't really want to be a research contributor, but I'm good at writing grants. What should I do? And then someone will say, oh, you should be a program manager and research coordinator, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
being able to kind of synthesize your experience into the features that are enjoyable to you and the features that are not, kind of are just as useful as the content of it. Like, okay, I really liked working with fixed income data, right?
but how did you make that transition though, from being in Morningstar to now where you are now? So what happened in between that time?
So I started at Morningstar just kind of like in the development program. So it's a well-established, well-structured program. A lot of big companies have it for their recent graduates. I started working in like customer service for a data product, and I had an opportunity to do a project for this research team and for this other client service team. And so I figured, why not? And I did those projects and found myself in different positions through Morningstar until ultimately I was a project manager for the behavioral science team. And that's a lot like some of the work that I did at Bard between like math and econ. And that was actually a pretty similar position to the one that I'm in now, where Morningstar's behavioral science is a lot of the same stuff. Like they go to conferences, they speak to advisors about, how to be the best advisor, financial advisor. They also do a lot about capturing investor preferences, right? Like how can we build the best portfolio for an individual, rather than, generically. And they also do some primary research, so like how important is the environment to investors, right? So that's kind of what the team does. And as a project manager on that team, I was, responding to the corporate sort of ask, right? Like, are you doing enough conferences? Are you, generating these quantitative metrics for our investment models? Making sure that if there are any new sort of behavioral interests, we would like, to understand investors' views on AI. Could the behavioral team conduct that sort of research, generate some white papers, go around the conference circuit, give those talks, right? So that was kind of my role on that team. And I got there because of my interest, because of my reputation, and because that was kind of where I was in my skill set, right? Like, I don't have a PhD, so I can't be a research contributor, but this is the kind of research I understand. And this is where I can inject value, is like being able to understand and engage actively and like enjoyably with the team, and also meet the business needs, which is kind of harder for like the PhDs on that team. They don't want to be like filling out the paperwork and, justifying the cost and stuff. So that kind of came from being really forward about, okay, here's what I like, and here's what I'm good at, and here's what I can do if this would be useful for you. And it was, working on that team and with those people was really when I was feeling like I wanted to go back to school and wanted to become a research contributor, which is to get more involved with the research. So that's when I applied to school at U Chicago, when I switched to this role.
You feel like you still could do something differently if you looked at your time at Bard?
Oh yeah, no, totally. Being a Bard student was so useful in so many ways, and they continue to reveal themselves. Like, I'll have a conversation and afterwards think like, oh, this reminds me of this time that I had at Bard. And I think the one major thing is having such a close relationship with the professors. People who at bigger schools don't have that. And like, through my, I applied to graduate school a few years after graduating. I still had this personal relationship with my professors when I reached out for letters of recommendation and just general advice, which was so useful. Also, because I work with, people in the height of their careers who are very smart. I kind of noticed when I first started out and was working with PhD folks and kind of having those like chats around the coffee station, about like research that was interesting and, their experience, their professional experience, their personal experience. That wasn't the first kind of relationship that I had like that, where, I was much younger and inexperienced, building sort of this like personal, but also professional and academic bond. And I have so enjoyed building this kind of professional corollary to the group of professors who like I'll still visit when I'm back in Annandale, roaming through the third floor of Albee.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. I agree. I mean, I'm a second year student, but I already feel like that whenever I talk with my professors, with employers on campus who I work with. So I completely agree here. Do you have any advice for someone who's trying to apply for internships and just wondering where to start? So if you were in that position, where would you start?
Yeah, so I was in that position, and I started by just kind of talking to some of the professors who I was closest to. My position at the time was like, what am I going to do this summer? I want to make some money. And, of course, like as a second thought, like I'd like to build my resume and, figure out what I'm doing with my life. But I think Bard is a place where you have a lot of resources, and you have a lot of resources who want to know your, very specific personal goals and wants. And for me, my professors like totally knew where I was coming from. And so, they were like, you should, just give finance a shot. And that's where I was coming from when I was looking for an internship in finance. It's just recommended to me. But the career development office, different clubs and groups on campus, people want to help. So if you are looking for something or feeling like, oh, maybe I should be looking for something and don't know where to start, definitely tap into your network within your department, within your social spaces, your, like PC network, even hanging around the campus center, hanging around the career development office. There's so much going on. And I think it's just a matter of time before you put yourself out there, before you hear of something that is exciting to you. And once that ball starts rolling, it's a lot more motivating and encouraging to keep looking or to stick with it.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much. Is there anything else you feel like you'd want to say to Bard students to share out?
I graduated 5 years ago now, and I definitely leaned on that Bard alumni network when I first got to Chicago. I mean, I didn't know anybody. I'm from the Northeast. And I would just encourage students to reach out to the Bard Alumni Network, either through connections that are facilitated by the CDO or just, like cold connections on LinkedIn, or asking a friend, like, do you know anybody in this field or at this company, or who had this sort of experience, or who went to this sort of school? I am always happy to talk to current and recently graduated Bard students. And I think that most people are. We all choose Bard for a reason, and we all want to see our Bardies successful. So if I can be of assistance to anyone watching or listening, please feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or over email. And I'd encourage anybody in any field to find that Bard connection and take advantage of it, if not just to, build a little bit more shared experience, connect with someone, or even properly network and get a position.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Emma, again for your time. And for everyone listening, we're going to have another guest coming up soon. So thank you for listening to the podcast.